Here's how to design your ideal work week. I just spent a week in New York City with one of my best friends who is a creative entrepreneur. And honestly, I had to come back and make this video for you guys because she is facing the exact same issue that all of you watching this video are facing. Completely overwhelmed, stressed out, and really just not understanding how to best manage her schedule. I told her I was going to sit down with her and help her figure out her life. And as somebody who has worked with small and medium-sized businesses over the last few years, that is why I'm qualified to do so. In this video, I'm going to go over a couple of the things that I'm going to be deep diving with her, so let's get straight into it. So you likely fall into one of two camps, or both might apply to you. The first is that you have lots of white space in your calendar, but you don't have any structure, so you're not using it effectively. This is 100% what I saw apply to my friend that I was with. She honestly has enough hours in a day. She has enough time to get in enough sleep. She has enough time in order to be able to deep dive into her work and prep for her week. But the issue is that she doesn't have any structure to her day. And this can be really hard if, like her, you are somebody who your weeks look completely different, where you're constantly working with different clients, you have to be at different locations. It's not easy to create a system where there is structure, but it absolutely is possible. So hang around till the very end because we're going to talk about it. The next camp is that you're really overbooked with client work and you don't have enough CEO time. Here's the thing, guys. A lot of people who are running businesses, especially solopreneurs, especially somebody like her who is a creative entrepreneur, you don't think of yourself as the CEO of a business. And honestly, that couldn't be farther from the truth. At the end of the day, you're somebody who is selling a service, you have a business, therefore you need to start truly running it like a business and putting on that CEO hat if you want to achieve a couple of specific things. One, if you want to have more freedom in your business, so you don't always want to be working. And two, if you want to be able to make more money, more specifically, actually take your business from, let's say, 6 figures and scale it to multiple 6 figures. I have seen people run successful businesses by themselves simply through brute force, right? They have a good service that they're providing, they're solving a problem for people, they're able to, get the marketing and sales engine running and get themselves clients, and they're able to make it to 6 figures through that way. But it becomes a tipping point where you cannot operate the way that you have continuously operated. You cannot do the same work that you continuously did in order to go from, like I said, 6 figures to multiple 6 figures, or especially 7 figures. By the way, if you have no idea what you as a CEO should be working on in your business, I have a free downloadable down below. It's a task and time audit that helps you identify what are the things that you really need to be prioritizing in your business on a weekly basis. So you can get that down below in the description box if you would like it. So here's the thing, if you fall into either of those camps, or it's possible that you're actually in both of them at the same time, what you will find is that you will hit a point where there is stagnation, or you plateau in your business, you're just not continuing to grow, you're missing priorities, and you are just feeling overwhelmed or burnt out. And here's the thing, I have completely been there, and that's why I can tell you guys that having really great structure can actually help you create freedom. And you don't need to work more hours. You just need a smarter way of approaching your business. One of the most important things for you guys to understand is that some of you watching this have a very small window of tolerance. I learned about this concept from a workshop that I went to at Harvard that was all about how to be more resilient in the face of stress. I have several videos where I recap some of the learnings, which I will link up above and down below in the description box. So your window of tolerance is essentially a metaphor. It's used to describe how much stress and other emotions you can tolerate before you feel overwhelmed. And here's one thing I noticed when I was staying with my friend. Her window of tolerance was so small. It was so tiny. And this is one of the first things I pointed out to her. And honestly, she wouldn't have even been aware of this unless I'd said something. Some of the behaviors that I noticed where I realized, wow, her window of tolerance is really tiny, is almost any time she picked up her phone or checked a notification from her laptop, she had what I would perceive to be an overreaction to a task that needs to be done. Again, she was not aware that she was doing this, but I told her, I said, almost every single time you pick up your phone, you're saying, oh my God, you're complaining, and you just actually have an audible, out loud, negative reaction to having to deal with something. Again, she didn't know she was doing this. She wasn't doing this because I was there with her. It's like this is her natural pattern throughout the day. Now, why is it important to flag this? Because for the people who fall into the first camp where you have a lot of white space in your calendar, having structure is extra important. You can very easily find yourself frustrated when you have to do different tasks all day long. And like I mentioned, for folks who have businesses where you're constantly dealing with different clients, have to be on set in different locations all the time, it can be difficult, but there are still plenty of ways in order to create that structure within your business. And here's the thing, what I would really recommend is to create structure for even things you don't feel like you have to create structure for. So let's get into some of the details. So you have to get clear on what matters within your business. I talk about this a lot, but just to briefly recap what I think is one of the most important concepts, it's something called Pareto's principle, or the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule basically says that 80% of results of our desired outcomes actually only comes from 20% of actions that we take. Now, I know that might sound like gibberish, it might not mean a lot, so let's break it down. What this might look like for you is that 80% of your revenue actually comes from 20% of clients, or 80% of the clothes that you wear on a weekly basis actually only come from 20% of your wardrobe. Pareto's principle is this phenomenon that we see play out in society over and over and over again, and it's especially important for business owners, and it's especially important if you are trying to create structure and create your ideal work week. Why is it so important? Because 80% of what you're trying to achieve actually only comes from 20% of the work, of the tasks that you're doing on a daily and weekly basis. And that is one of the primary issues, prioritization. I did a whole video about how most people think time management is their issue, but it's not. Prioritization is actually their issue. I've heard so many people talk about how they just need an assistant and how an assistant would solve their problems. But I know the behind the scenes of how they operate in their business, and it absolutely will not. Because again, it's not necessarily a time management issue where they don't have enough time to do all of the things, but they just don't understand how to prioritize the things that matter. Which, by the way, guys, if you're finding you're at that point in your business where you're making money, but you're looking to take it to the next level and really achieve more freedom in your business, feel free to book a coffee chat with me down below in the description box. We can talk in a more personalized way about what this could look like for you in your business. But one thing that you can really take the time to do on your own is getting clear on what matters. What is that 20%? Those are the things that you should be prioritizing. And once you have them prioritized, then you create dedicated time blocks to those moments. And here's the thing, a lot of people are going to push back on this because their day looks different every day, but there's still ways to keep that structure even if your days are variable. For example, when you complete the time and task audit that you can get down below in the description box, it will allow you to clearly see the things that you should be prioritizing and the things that you are working on. So let's say one of those priorities is on outbound, right? So that's reaching out to clients, following up on leads. That is something that you can do every day. And I guarantee you what's happening is you are kind of spending all day doing specific buckets of tasks. You are spending all day responding back to emails. You are spending all day doing outbound. You are spending all day creating marketing material. And that's part of what's causing you to feel so stressed out, is you are jumping from task to task to task. And this never truly allows for any deep work where you can get things done. I always say we almost want our business to feel boring. We want things to feel on autopilot. And one of the ways that you can do that is by having dedicated time blocked out to do the important work, to do the things that need to be done. And I'm telling you guys, having 30 minutes that you carve out for these tasks every single day is going to be so much more effective than doing them all day long. And a major issue with time blocking is that people tend to over time block, where they don't leave any room for changes to their schedule. They don't leave any room for real life, for the time that it takes to do laundry, cook food, pick up a phone call from your mom, People don't allow any time for that. And it's really important that when you're time blocking, you actually build in real life into your calendar. The other tip I would give you when it comes to time blocking is to have anchor blocks. So these are blocks that are non-negotiables. They don't move. If somebody's trying to schedule a meeting or schedule a call with you over that time, it will not happen. So some examples of key anchor blocks that might exist in your work week are a CEO block. This is one that I really encourage. I find nobody actually creates the time in the calendar to do the strategic work in their business. This is the time where you are dedicating yourself to brainstorming, to solving problems, to figuring out how to make more money. I really highly recommend having a CEO block. And you also might have something like a dedicated client prep block. So if you're doing a lot of client work, you know that you need time in order to prep for those clients. So create that time within your calendar. This can be 3 times a week, it can be daily, it can be a Monday morning 4-hour time block, whatever it is that works best for you. In order to ensure there's enough flexibility though in your calendar, like I mentioned earlier, I really recommend not having more than 3 themes of anchor blocks. So again, if you have a 1-hour client prep session every day, that's fine. That's considered one theme, but do not have more than 2 to 3 themes in a week. Otherwise, you'll find that your calendar is just not realistic and you're not able to really create your ideal work week because you're not able to stick with anything. So let's talk about how we can change our mindset to actually stick with a schedule and stick with our ideal work week. The first is to treat your calendar like a contract with yourself, of course. Here's the thing, a lot of us can show up for clients, a lot of us will show up when money's on the line, a lot of us will show up when our back's against the wall and there's a deadline, but we refuse to show up for ourselves consistently. A change in mindset that you need to apply is that there is money on the line. Your time is valuable, your time is money, and ultimately you limiting your ability to scale and really grow in your business comes from this place of disorganization. I saw something online recently that was along the lines of, if somebody were to follow you around for a week, or if somebody were to view your calendar, how serious would they think you are about yourself and your business? So I want you guys to ask yourself that question. How serious would I really think you are about growing your business, about achieving excellent client and customer satisfaction, and really just taking charge of your life if I were to view your calendar, or if I were to just stay on your shoulder and follow you around for a week? Because here's the thing, I don't rate anybody just for being busy. Busy work doesn't mean anything. It's really about your ability to get things done. So are you creating that structure in a way that allows you to get things done? Or are you just busy all day long and on the verge of burnout? Here's another tip. Have some sort of reset ritual. This is something else I saw somebody else say, which I absolutely loved. She was talking about how her and her daughter have a daily evening shutdown of their house. So the way that they treat their house at the end of the day is like they need to shut it down in order for it to be reset for the next day. So they make sure the dishwasher is loaded, they make sure everything is picked up off the ground and organized, and basically they end their day in a way where when they get up the next morning, things are as they should be. They are in order. I really recommend having some sort of reset ritual for you when it comes to your work week. Now, this doesn't need to be daily. I think it's great if you can do it daily, some sort of 15-minute end of day shutdown and prioritization for the next day. But I think it's also really suitable to do weekly as well. So ending off your week in a way where you are able to see what you were able to accomplish, what you were not able to accomplish, what needs to spill over into the next week, what needs to be prioritized, outlining all of these things so that you are headed into the next week with a plan in hand, in addition to your well-crafted time-blocked week. This makes sure that when you're headed into a time-blocked session, you actually know what you're supposed to be doing during that time that you've carved out. And you don't spend a lot of time just wondering what needs to be done or thinking about what needs to be done, as opposed to actually doing the deep work to get it done. And remember guys, don't forget to build in that time where real life happens, and don't forget to build in time for fun. Ultimately, Our businesses fund our vision for our life, and we don't want our entire life to be just work. Yes, we enjoy serving clients. Yes, we enjoy what it is that we do. Yes, we enjoy making money, but ultimately there's a bigger picture at hand here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a like and hit that subscribe button down below. And of course, there are those free resources for you down below in the description box. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.